Hello, everyone. Stay tuned. I'm getting ready to start with my Ask Me Anything. Let me just get the Instagram loaded. Okay, well, Instagram comes up. I want to say welcome, everyone, to my monthly Ask Me Anything. This is Shellye Archambeau. And once a month, I get online and address questions people may have with regard to their career, personal, whatever it happens to be. And if I can be helpful, I try to be. I've had a lot of experience over the years, both in leadership, individual contributor roles, running operations in the US, overseas, sitting on boards, advising companies, etc. And my goal with my Ask Me Anythings is really to just provide perspective that hopefully you can use. So thanks for joining. I see a few people online. Thanks very much on Insta. Let me just wave back and say hi to everybody. And I am going to get started here. So the way this works is some people have actually sent me questions in advance, which I will go through first. If you have a question you'd like me to address, please pop it into the chat. Or if you're on Instagram, pop it into the comments and I will be happy to address it. So let's get started. First, I am busy expanding my network. The question now is, how do I bring my work into the conversation? So the best way to bring work into a conversation is by sharing an interesting story that might involve your work. So this might be something you actually have to prepare for versus just having right off the cuff. But if something interesting happened in the office, or maybe in your industry, or maybe while you were at work, you had a chance to read or see something that was interesting, you can start with that. So for instance, let's say, who knows, you work in a software technology company and something interesting happened where maybe someone's trying to use ChatGPT and it gave a really crazy response, right? Perfect. So you could say in a social environment, hey, a funny thing happened in the office today. I work at the software company, blah, 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 blah. I'm responsible for such and such and such and such. And one of my coworkers actually tried to use ChatGPT to do X, Y, and Z, and this is what happened. So now what you did was you brought in your work, you brought in your title of what you do, but you did it in a socially accepted way because you're telling and sharing a funny story, an anecdote. So you don't have to wait for people to ask you, what do you do and where do you work? If they're not asking and that's not coming forward and you're trying to make sure that people know kind of what you do and who you are, then just try to bring in an interesting story or an interesting anecdote, or maybe even something that you read. It might be an article, right? I was reading this article because I'm trying to learn more about blah, 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 given my role is to do X, Y, and Z, right? It's such and such. And one of the interesting things I learned was blah, 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 right? So it's that kind of thing that you can do to bring your work into a social environment. Next question. Can career and personal life be built together? I'm finding it difficult to find a life partner. Okay, so the answer is yes, it can. Is it easy? Nope. But most things, frankly, in life that are worthwhile aren't easy. So my big advice in terms of how do you make life and work together is focus on work and life in an integrated fashion versus a separate but equal fashion. And what I mean by that is things that you are interested in doing. Try to figure out how you weave that in to what you do in life in general. And one of the things that I worked hard at was trying to find how to do one activity, but have it actually accomplish multiple things that I like to do. I started a gourmet dinner club because I like to cook. I like to entertain. I like to getting together with friends, drinking nice wine. And I don't have time to do all those things separately because of everything was on my plate. So I formed a gourmet dinner club. So one night we could do all those things together. So think about how you make time to do the things that you want to do. It really is about prioritizing and sometimes being a little creative to figure out how you pull things together. Now, finding a life partner, I wish I had the perfect answer for that. I don't. But let me tell you, it starts with making sure that you are spending time in places where you are more likely to find your life partner. So if you are looking for a life partner who's also interested in athletics because you're interested in athletics, then make sure you're joining some co-ed sports teams, right, to get your exercise. Or you're participating in some kind of fan group, right? Again, that's co-ed. Or if you're single sex, same thing, right? But what you want to do is to find places to spend time that will actually put you in situations in which you'll have a chance to get together with people who have similar interests. Because a lot of times, great partnerships, great long term relationships, they start when you actually have something in common to begin with. So make the time, put yourself out there. Thanks so much for joining. I see a lot of folks on Insta. Let me do some quick waves here. Next, time management. So time management for women has always been a question throughout time. We seem to do it well, and then there are times when we drift away from professional tasks because other priorities take over. What are simple but effective tips you would suggest to manage time? Now, time management to me is critical. It really is. Because at the end of the day, time, and I'm just waving to people on Instagram here, time is our most precious resource. It really is. It's finite and you can never get it back. So when it comes time to figuring out how do you prioritize and make time to do things you need to make time for across your life, to me, it's about prioritization. It is putting your list of professional priorities, your list of personal priorities, putting those two things together, and then reprioritizing ruthlessly, so the things that are important across your life get done. Now, I can tell you right now what that means is there are going to be some things on your list that won't get done. So you either have to learn how to live without them getting done or find someone else to do them. That can happen through delegation. It can happen through asking for help. It can happen by leveraging other family members. Pardon me. Whatever it takes. But the key to start is prioritization. And then one of the things that I do, and I still do to this day, is I put everything I do down in my calendar. Why? Because I look back at my calendar every 3 or 4 months. I look back at my calendar and I ask myself, am I spending my time the way I want to be spending my time? Does it match with my priorities? Because you may find that you're not. And by reviewing it, you might be able to find places where you can actually save time so that you can spend it where you need to spend it. Okay, next. How would you leverage LinkedIn or other platforms to achieve your goals had they existed during your early career? You know, it's interesting. It all depends on what your goals are. One of mine, for sure, as I was building my career, is in certain areas I wanted to be seen as a thought leader, especially when it came to leadership, because I was striving to become a senior leader. So one of the ways you can leverage platforms is frankly by writing, putting articles or putting links to interesting articles on the topics of which you are interested in. But it's not just articles. You need to put your own views out there, and then people associate you and your views with that particular area. So that's one way that you can leverage LinkedIn or social media in terms of to help. The other is people use it more and more these days. So making sure that you're actually filling out your skills and your expertise so people can find you if they're looking for you could also be a helpful way in terms of the leverage. And make sure your LinkedIn profile is always up to date, because many people, when they first hear about you, somebody says, oh, do you know Karen, right? Do you know Karen? And the answer may come back, I don't know Karen, but let me look her up. So if what you have out there is not up to date or current and doesn't really reflect who you are and what you're up to, you've just missed an opportunity. So make sure that your profiles are actually up to date. Next, What is something about being a board member that people don't realize? Well, based upon some requests I get from people, I don't think people realize that board members don't call the shots. They don't actually run the company. They don't hire people. Board members have responsibility to represent the shareholders. And in representing the shareholders, their responsibility is to ensure that the strategy is the right strategy, that the leadership, primarily the CEO, is the right leader to execute the strategy, and they are hiring the right team and resources to deliver on that strategy, and that they're doing it in a way that follows rules, regulations, ethics, right, etc., and that they are complying, right, with all areas of compliance. So it really is an oversight governance role. It's not a management leadership role. Next, how have you gotten people to see the value you could bring as a senior leader? It's interesting. It's not something that I actually thought about. And what I mean by that is I wasn't thinking, oh my gosh, how are people going to see my value? As a senior leader, I believed, and I believe this is true, that by delivering on expected results, if not exceeding those results, building a strong team who makes good, not only team members, but also work well with other people across the organization, and being a good corporate citizen and supportive of others and helpful, that if I did all those things, people would see the value. So to me, ensuring people see the value means you need to be creating value. And you create value by delivering on your objectives, if not exceeding them on a regular basis, by bringing good people into the organization, by developing and growing your team's skills and capabilities, and by supporting the rest of the organization as it relates to what goals that they are going after. That's the best way in terms of to do it. Now, the second part of that is do all that, but make sure that people actually know you're doing this. Because sometimes we have roles where our responsibilities might be a little hidden or may not get as much visibility. So it's important that you make sure that people actually know what you do. And making them know what you do is not a matter of walking around saying, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me. But you can make sure that you bring up what you do in a very simple way. And it's something I share all the time. People ask you how you are all the time. How are you? And what do you say? You say, oh, I'm good. I'm fine. Things are going great. Well, no, you're not fine, good, or great. What are you? You are excited. You're excited because, oh my goodness, you spent the last 3 weeks working with the team to launch a new product and it just came out to rave reviews. Ooh, right? Now, what did I just do? I answered the question they asked me, how am I doing? But I took 30 seconds and actually told them what I am doing. And when you do it that way, you're not bragging, you're sharing. And by the way, you're sharing in response to the question they asked you because they asked how you're doing. So do the work, deliver the results, build the team, make sure everybody's a good team player, right? Support others, but make sure people know what you're doing. Next question. I have a specific question around career direction, which I've been lost for a while. My career has been developed in small tech startups, more or less Series B. And I've been in some leadership roles with this career path and I'm responsible for a significant department function. Now I have 2 different directions to reach the next level. Either continue with small startups for a VP executive role covering a critical area, or a lower title covering a more specific and smaller space with a larger company. They both have pros and cons. One, broader understanding of the business, which you get in a small company. The other is getting maybe brand recognition because you're working for a bigger company, right? Bottom line is I struggle with balancing and refining executive. Wait, hold on. It's 2 different questions. So the question is, which should I do? Small company or large company? And I'm going to take the second part of the question later. So first of all, In order for me to give you any perspective on big company versus small company, I have to understand what you're actually trying to do. And I don't mean just getting the next promotion, because frankly, you can do either and get the next promotion. My biggest advice is to sit back and think through, what do you really want to achieve in your career? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to be a CEO of a startup? Are you trying to run a big business? Are you trying to head up an international operation, right? I don't know what you're trying to do. So because I don't know what you're trying to do, I really can't advise you on pros and cons of one versus the other. So my biggest advice, sit back, spend time, and think about what you ultimately want to do. Then work backwards. Once you know what you ultimately want to do, then figure out what skills and experience will best position you for that. Even if it's not the next step, but might be 3 or 4 steps ahead. That's okay. Be strategic, and that way you'll come to the right answer. The second part of the question was, I struggle with balancing and refining executive presence and a broad understanding of the business with stronger personal brand from a big name. Are there any job functions with more prominent companies that can help you understand the business in a more comprehensive way? Okay, so those are a couple things put together. So I struggle with balancing, refining executive presence. Okay, executive presence is challenging for a lot of people because it's really hard to put your finger on it. It's one of those things where you know it when you see it. But what I'll tell you is executive presence really is manifesting in the physical sense the confidence that people want to see in the internal sense. So executive presence first, frankly, starts with posture. It really does. Whether you sit up straight or you sit up hunched, and whether you have to look up at people, right, or you're sitting back, right, how you walk in, how you speak, all of that is executive presence. And all of those things, the good news is, can be practiced. So you can easily search on key steps to executive presence and actually work on them. So that you can do. Now, with regards to big company, small company, in terms of functions, a lot of times learning about the company and how the company operates, you don't have to be limited to what you actually are responsible for. It's perfectly acceptable for you to try to understand the big picture of the organization, and therefore you can better understand how your piece of it fits in. So, how do you learn about the whole company? You talk to people across the whole company. Find out what they do, right? Read everything from the annual reports that come out, right? The press releases your company puts out. All those things will give you context for the business that will help you manage the group that you have responsibility for in a better way. So let's see what else we've got. Okay, those are the questions I had that were prepared coming in. So now, for those of you online via YouTube or on Instagram, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the comments. So I'm just going to scroll through to see if I missed any. All right, here we go. You have to create situations, I think somebody was responding, that allow you to find fulfillment. I'm sure that was helping the person who's trying to figure out what job is the right job to take next. So thank you for that help. I don't see any other questions coming through. So I tell you what, everyone, it is summertime, and I think people are very engaged in a variety of things. I appreciate everyone taking the time to join, but I think we're going to make today's session kind of short and sweet. So I thank you very much for joining. I'll give you one more kind of second to see. Oh, wait, here came in one. Here's a question. What would you say are the most successful qualities for a successful leader? You know, there's a lot of lists that you can look up about what does it take to be successful. Personally, I think to be a successful leader, you need to create an environment in which people want to follow you. Your title does not make you a leader, your people do. And what does it take for people to follow you? They want to understand where you're going, where you're taking them. So clarity of communications, critical. They want to trust you. So you have to be open, direct, honest, straightforward. All those things develop trust. They have to believe that you have their best interest at heart. So you need to care. I mean, really care. Care about people, not just the job they get done, but about them as human beings. So if you communicate really well and you're clear in how you do that, and you care about people, right? And let them know that. And you're able to create an environment in which people can thrive and do well, you've got the makings for a very successful leader. Because at the end of the day, it's not what the leader does, it's what the leader's team does. All right, what's the next one? What's your biggest advice for someone who is starting a new business? Take the time to plan. Take the time to plan and seek out advice from people who have built businesses in similar categories to you before you have. Because here's the key. It's really hard to build a business. Now, is it exciting? Is it fulfilling? Is it frustrating? Is it this? I mean, the answer is absolutely to all those things. And I encourage you, if you want to do it, do it. But do it with your eyes wide open. Take the time to figure out a plan for building your business. Run that plan by people who've been there, done that. Get help from others. Ask for advice and counsel perspective. All you're trying to do with all those steps is to improve your odds that you'll be successful. Because the odds aren't in your favor, right? A lot of businesses get started and the majority do not succeed. So does that mean you can't succeed? Absolutely not. Of course you can. But you got to improve your odds. So take help, plan, make sure you're getting good advice, and you surround yourself with people who are supporting what it is that you are doing. All right. What else have we got? All right. That's what I see. Well, listen, everybody. Thanks so much for joining. I so appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your Monday, and we'll see you next month on my Ask Me Anything. Bye.